There is war. It's a war.
The Plebeian View's goal is to be a leading voice on creating a fair and equitable world where all people are entitled to life, liberty, and happiness.
It's a war.
The Plebeian View's goal is to be a leading voice on creating a fair and equitable world where all people are entitled to life, liberty, and happiness.
How you doing? This is Muata Greene. Welcome you to the Plebeian View March 2025 podcast. In this podcast, I'm going to be talking about my article in the Tri-City News this month for Women's History Month, talk about the patriarchy. Also, I'm going to talk about the veterans, how we as veterans oppose the mass deportations and domestic military deployments, which we are totally against, and that this president that we have in office now is trying to push forward. And also the constitutional crisis that's going on. And people have to understand how our constitutional rights that we don't understand are being taken away. So stay with us for the Plebeian View for March 2025. Okay, let's start out with my column in the Tri-City News called The Woke View, Women's History, the Myth of Male Superiority. My view is to better understand women's history, we have to look at the history of male superiority and its effect. This unfounded belief is considered a myth because it's unscientific evidence and is nothing to really support it. The key points about the myth of male superiority. There's, number one, no biological basis. From research, there are minimal any significant biological difference in genders. Number two, it's social construction. Male superiority is a social construct perpetuated by a patriarchal system that grants men greater power and privilege. And three, gender, a key concept that distinguishes between biological sex and sociological gender ones. Also, in an article, I get into talking about women's empowerment and how important that is, and important of the women's suffrage movement, the second wave of female feminism in the 60s and 70s, economic impact when women got more equal rights on the job and pay, and social changes, challenging traditional male gender roles and promoting more inclusive societal norms. So I just gave you a quick overview of what I talked about in the Woke View, but it's online on my social network, the Plebeian View, Muata Greene, the Plebeian View. And also if you get a hold of a full issue of the Tri-City News from March 6th, it's in the Woke View column. So check it out and let me know what you think. Okay, let's look at this second part I want to talk about, how we as veterans oppose mass deportation and domestic military deployments. We support the personnel who question the legitimacy of the Trump's orders and racist campaign of mass deportation of undocumented workers who are friends, neighbors, and even fellow veterans. Remember that. It's not about being illegal. No human being is illegal. Human beings migrate for various reasons. What's going on in the world, economic violence, to name a few. Also, we oppose how this president has moved 1,000 Army personnel and 500 Marines have been sent to the border. An additional 2,500 National Guards already been there. Helicopter units are being sent along U.S. Air Force C-17s and C-130 aircraft. This shouldn't be going on. And this is against any norm or anything that's supposed to be happening for our active military. Use of active duty military personnel for domestic policing operation is strictly forbidden by the Posse Comitatus Act, Posse Comitatus, Act. Look it up online, which legally challenges that President Trump is not legally do this. He cannot legally do this. This is very important to understand. The posse comitatus, by allowing the executives to declare a national emergency, requires the domestic deployment of U.S. troops, but using the Insurrection Act to override the protections of the Posse Comitatus Act and deploy U.S. troops within U.S. states to investigate, detain, and remove illegal immigrants would be unprecedented use by the presidential power and misuse of the military. I'm just quoting from the act. It's online. Check it out. This is totally against any rules that were set out and what that's supposed to be about. And also, I want to go on to say that what we have here in the United States is a president who's willing to engage thousands of U.S. military personnel in what appears, among other atrocities, to be a profit-making scheme based on a contrived a border crisis. There's no such thing as a border crisis that's been contrived to make it look like people coming across the border are the enemies. Remember, this country was here. There were people living here before the European crossed the ocean and came to this country. So who were the first so-called illegal, undocumented immigrants? The Europeans who migrated here, who came here. And now they set up a country that is even worse than the countries that they left, supposedly for religious and political freedom. So we have to question what's really going on. Are we trying to go back to the 1800s when people of color and anybody didn't have rights and who was considered people of color? At one time, Europeans also were against their own kind. Italians, Southern Italians, Irish were considered Europe white, but then that changed over time. We have to look at what's going on in this country and the constitutional crisis that's going on and how this is going to create more and more problems of taking away what rights we have. Remember, the Constitution says, we the people, means we the people. Not we the rich white people, but we the people have the same rights as everybody. Everybody has the same rights. That's why this country supposed to be founded different. The words of our Constitution says the right thing, but putting that into practice is another thing. It must be taught in the schools, from the elementary schools on up. At one time, when I was in school many years ago, it was taught to a minimum degree. I learned more about the military, about the Constitution in the military, should I say, because the first things they taught us was about the Constitution, we the people, and what it should be about and what we stand for. And that's so important to understand. It's about we the people. As I bring the Plebeian View to a close, I want to share some information with you. And as a Vietnam veteran, I came across, from some of my research online, there's a coin put out, Vietnam era veterans. Vietnam era veterans. But what's more important about this coin is the size of a dollar bill coin. It's made out of metal. On the back, it says, I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, domestic and foreign. I'll read that again. That I do solemnly swear that I will defend and support the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, domestic and foreign. And that's key. Because right now, our foreign enemies are more dangerous than our domestic enemies are more dangerous than any foreign enemy has been in recent time or even in the past. It's our domestic enemies that are the problem. And that we must understand. So this coin, veterans coin, Vietnam veterans era coin, tells it all about. Once again, any questions or comments, send them to the Plebeian View at gmail.com. And as we say, the needed tongue of Kiswahili. Tutan Nana. Until we meet again. Take care.
There is war. It's a war.
The Plebeian View's goal is to be a leading voice on creating a fair and equitable world where all people are entitled to life, liberty, and happiness.
It's a war.
The Plebeian View's goal is to be a leading voice on creating a fair and equitable world where all people are entitled to life, liberty, and happiness.